Okay, so you should be seeing my activity stream on eThuto. I'm going to go to a subject now. And the first thing I'm going to show you, a couple of first things I'm going to show you are some of the ways we can assess students that are not tests. Now, as a word of caution, before we start, all of these methods are quite instructor dependent, meaning that you have to go and mark and assess and evaluate each single one. Obviously not the same for peer and peer reviews, peer assessments, because the students assess each other, but you will still have to have some form of protocol in place to moderate those assessments. So remember that these assessments are quite heavy on that department, on the marking and the assessment. So if you have very large groups, this might not be the road for you, but it's always still interesting to know of all the tools available to you, and you can use them for other purposes, not necessarily assessments. Okay, so let's start off with assignments. Now, most of you already know how to set up assignments, so this is going to be brief. I just quickly want to show you the gist of it for those of you who haven't done assignments yet, who's only been working with tests. I've created some content headings here for these, but you can do any of these assessments. You can do under your learning units or anywhere where you have a content area. So you can name the content area, the learning unit, and have your assessments in between, or you can have delegated assessment areas on a separate content heading like I have in this case. So that's all dependent on your style. I've got one for assignments here. And what an assignment is basically is if the student comes in, they click on the link, they can see here, a couple of things. For instance, this is my example, so I don't have dates assigned to it, so it's open always for showing people. You can have a rubric into it where students can see what they will be expected to do and perform and how they will be assessed. A rubric is a very good way of aligning your outcomes with your assessment. So I always like having my rubrics up for students to be visible. That way they know exactly what is expected of them. Then you have your instructions, and this is very dependent on what kind of assignment or practical this is. You can add anything into it, like images or extra documents that you attach. But what's great about assignments is we can have those checked via Safe Assign for originality. Now, I say this all the time in training, we cannot check for plagiarism. The software cannot check for plagiarism because software cannot check for intent. It can only tell you that there are similarities between text A and text B. And you as the lecturer yourself have to make the decision whether or not you think it was a plagiarism with intention that is against the CUT policy and should require further disciplinary action. So the software cannot tell you plagiarism. Don't ask me what kind of percentage means plagiarism. That's not how it works. You have to go and check the plagiarism board. But with assignments, you can check for that. And we use Safe Assign for undergrads. If you have postgrads that you supervise, you can send them to us and we can put them through Turnitin, which is a bit more complex. But for undergrads, we just use Safe Assign. And then the student will come and either upload a paper that they've written in Word, for instance, like so. What's nice about assignments is they can also upload multiple, not just now. They can upload multiple files, and they can upload any file type. Obviously, a JPEG, which is an image file extension, will not be checked with Safe Assign because it's not text-based. Only these kinds of files will be checked. This document will be checked for plagiarism. So that's one that will go. And they can upload as many as they want. They can add comments to you, etc., and then they can submit. This won't go through for submission because I am in preview mode as a lecturer. I'm not a student. But if that were a student, that is what that would look like. So these are assignments. Let me quickly show you how to set one of these up. So in your content area, you go to assessments, assignment, and then we give it a name and we can color code it. So I'm going to call this assignment May. And then you have your instructions, and this is the same kind of instructions you would put on an assignment that you gave them on a piece of paper in class. So this would be something like, I'm just making stuff up now. I don't even really follow the stories, but I know something happened here. All right, so you can put in your descriptions, and you can make it as specific as you want. You can say it should have intro, body, conclusion, and for instance, references, biography, etc., etc. So you will put in all the information here that your students need. Remember, this is a content editor box, so you can make it, stylize it into your, if you have other ways of doing this, make, some things, maybe highlight them. List of references is really important, so I'm going to make it bold and red, etc. You can add images, you can upload files. So if there are any files that you want your students to have before they start the assignment, maybe it's some notes or the PowerPoint or anything like that, you can just post those in here. Again, as many as you need to, you can upload, and these will be available to the student beforehand. All right. Then we have our due date. So when is this due? Now, the due date won't stop students from uploading. It won't close the assignment. That is done by the availability dates. The due date will only show you that students are late in the needs marking section. So it's just a quick way. It's a quick way for students to see when it's due, and it's a quick way for you to see when students are late. So I'm going to put in due date is, let's say it's today. I'm going to put in end of day today. And then we go to points possible. So how much is this worth? I'm going to say this is worth 40. We can associate a rubric with it. You can either select one from your already created rubrics. Now, if you want to know how to do that, rubrics are under your course tools. And these are in alphabetical order, so you can see rubrics here. So I'm just going to open this in a new link. And you can build rubrics or edit existing rubrics here. So all of your rubrics come into this space. Okay. So you can either create a new one, import one from another subject, or you can create it directly in the assignment. So instead of selecting one of my already existing rubrics, I can create a new one just here. Now, I'm not going to create one just now today because that's going to take a while, but you are welcome to contact me. I also have a video on how to create rubrics, but it's still pretty self-explanatory. It's not really difficult. So I'm just going to select one of my already created ones. It's now going to say that my marks possible and my points possible doesn't correspond with my rubric, so it's going to change it. That's good. I'm going to say here that you can allow the students to see the rubric, which I think is a good thing, with the scores or without the scores, or only after marking. Now, I always like having it with the scores. That means students can see exactly what is expected of them, for the assignment. All right, so we've got 3 tabs here. Now, some of these are very important. So I get asked about this often when people select things that they didn't understand what it was going to do. So firstly, with submission details, you can select that it's a group submission. But now here's what you need to understand. You first have to create the groups. The groups need to be extant before. So groups, before you can assign an assignment to groups. Otherwise, the assignment will be invisible to all students. If you have no groups on your page and you assign it to groups and you have no groups, it'll give you a little pop-up here that say, okay, group submission, but you don't have any groups, so nobody's going to be able to see this. So remember that. Actually, I would have loved if it just didn't allow you to make group submission if you didn't have groups, but for some reason it allows you, I think, so that you can come later and edit when you've created your groups. Anyway, then you select which groups will be allowed to upload this assignment. And in my case, both of these groups, for instance, will be allowed. Any groups left in the left-hand side will not see this submission. They will not be able to see it at all. Portfolio submission, I think we should cover another day. It's just because portfolio submission, you have to build a template for the portfolio and then students respond. And it's going to take more than, half an hour, and we want to cover some other things. So you're welcome to ask me to show you how to make the portfolio submissions, or maybe I should create a video on that as well, if it's something that people are interested in. But basically what it is, it's a sort of portfolio of evidence, but you keep prompting the students. So the portfolio submission tells the student, all right, now put in your first assignment that when you did that test or something. Now upload your essay that you wrote. Now upload that you wrote. So it's like a forced portfolio of evidence, but you have to go first and build the template, which people struggle with, which is why I don't really often show it, but I am willing to show you. So just give me a call and I'll show you how to do it. Maybe we'll do a training session one day on just that nearer the end of semester when you might want to have portfolio of evidence. So I'm not going to cover that today. I'm just going to do these. Let's make this one individual. But like I said, remember, group first need to have groups. Number of attempts. So this is the same as you have in your test, single, multiples, then you actually type in how many attempts they have, or unlimited. Now, when you make a safe assign portal for your students, you always make them unlimited. I have a video on the channel on how to make a safe assign portal. It's just a space where students can continuously upload documents to have it checked for originality. Then when of these are going to be scored, so if you have more than one attempt, which one is going to be the one that ends up in the grade center as the student score? Last mark would be the more logical, because you're giving them 2 attempts because something happened in the first attempt and they failed, so they had a second attempt. But you can go and choose highest, lowest, first, or average between the 2. I normally just leave it on last marked. All right, here's your plagiarism tools. Yes, I want to check this for plagiarism with safe assign. And then it's got some just information here regarding language and things like that. And when you have anonymous marking, the report will be hidden from students, etc., etc. You can allow the students to view safe assign originality report for the attempts. So if you want them to be able to go back and fix some things or just know what their percentage was, you can allow them to view it. Now, this one is very important. If your students have more than one attempt, it's good to check this box. What this does is it excludes the first submission and consequent submissions for this assignment from our database, which means that the next time the student uploads that same document, it won't compare to itself. Now, if it did that, if it compared to itself, it's not the end of the world. You can exclude that submission manually, but it's nice to do it if you have more than one attempt. Otherwise, the next time the student uploads, it will come back 100% because, of course, that document compared to itself previously. Now, it's a good practice to at least somewhere along the line to have them upload the final documents where you do not have that checked, so that these submissions go into our database so that next year they form part of the search for the new students. I hope that makes sense. All right, so that's submission details. Now, marking options. I used to not show this when I trained because we don't really do anonymous assessments and delegated marking and things like that, but people are checking them, and then, you know, when we have to reconcile the marks, there's problems. So let me explain what this does. Anonymous marking means that you cannot see the student's papers during the marking process. You will, however, be able to review the mark later in the grade center, but you can never see the document again under the student name. So this may cause you problems later on. So it sounds like a good idea, you know, because now you feel like it's impartial, it's anonymous, I'm marking, but it's difficult later for evidence to recover because you cannot see the documents. You can only see the marks. You'll see that student A had 73%, but you cannot see the attempt and how you marked it again because it was anonymous. And these two you can't really go back on. So if you've chosen them and submitted and the students have handed in, it's difficult to undo them. So be careful when you choose one of these 2 boxes. Next one is delegated marking. Delegated marking is great if you have very large groups. For instance, PIM, personal information management lecturers use delegated marking. They have all of the first years, so they will put them in groups and then put in delegated marking. That makes sense. But what it does is later on you have to reconcile the marks, and you choose one person to reconcile the marks, and each marker has different abilities. Some can reconcile, some can only put up, some can mark, some can. So it's a little bit more complicated than just saying, I want these lecturers to reconcile, to mark. So that's why I say when you want to do it, be sure that you understand what you're doing and, you know, how you're doing it. For instance, I can now say that my teaching assistant is only going to mark group 1, okay? And he can also reconcile mark. Now I can say that the instructor here is going to do group 2. I could have put them all as random sets, so each of them gets a random set. So it depends on your subject matter. Or I can say maybe this instructor is not a marker, so they're going to get none, for instance. But now what happens afterwards is this instructor cannot see anything. This instructor cannot see group 1. And this instructor cannot see group 2. So it causes problems later on when we start moderating, when we start reconciling, so when you do this, make sure that you plan it ahead. Maybe just check in with me so I help you work out what all the kinks are going to be and so on, because it is difficult to undo after it's been done. So make sure that we see, even when you do it it gives you a little pop-up. It's very annoying. Okay, that's marking options. Display of marks. What's my primary display of mark? In other words, in the grade center, it's going to be in a score. So if it's 20 out of 40, it will be 20. If it's percentage, it's going to be 50. You can choose complete, incomplete. So if it's just maybe something they had to hand in and you just want to check them, yep, hand it in. You can do complete, incomplete. We don't really work with letters and text in South Africa, but if you do, they are available. And you can also have a secondary. So if you want to have it as percentage for the first and score for the second, it will put a diagonal line through your column and put both in. So that is available if you want it as well. Including grade center marking calculations. So if you have columns that do calculations, for instance, you have an average column or a specific weighted column that you have or something, do you want this to be included? Total columns, anything like that. If checked out, then it won't be, the column will just be on its own. It won't be incorporated into any of the weights or total or so columns. If you have anonymous, then it will automatically not be included. Show to students on my marks. Now, most of us uncheck this while exams are in place, and then maybe you can come back later and check it, or you just hide the column, which is what I prefer doing because it's just quicker to undo when you want them to be able to see the marks, but you can uncheck here as well. Show average and median for the students. So when they go into my marks and check, they can also see the average and the median statistics for the assignment. Be careful when checking this. I know some departments don't actually want you to show the average to students. So just double check with your HOD if this is something that you are allowed to do. Okay, availability of the assignment. We can limit it. So in other words, it opens today, it closes tomorrow. And you can put in your times. You can track the number of views. So later on, you can see how many students opened this assignment. I don't really understand why you would want to do this for assignments, because you can see how many students actually, submitted the assignment. But maybe if you wanted to see how many opened and did not submit, it will be, a hard task for a large classroom. I wouldn't want to have to do that, but it's there, it's available. You can use it. All right, and then we submit. And that is an assignment. Okay, there we go. Now, assignments, students know how to upload assignments, so don't worry about them. They have their own set of videos. We do orientation with them and training with them and so on. But they just click on it. They can see when it's due. They can view the rubric if you're allowed. They will be able to see any documents you upload, etc. And then they just put in. If you check for plagiarism, they have to check and say, I agree, because of course, it is still their intellectual property. They have to agree that it goes into the database. And they can put in their comments and submit. Okay, so that is assignments. So most of you, this would have been old news, but I thought I had to include it if I'm going to do, alternatives, because a lot of practicals can be done with this tool. Let's move on to some of the others. So I'm going to do discussions, blogs, and journals. Now, all of those are not under assessment, but they can still be assessed, and they are lovely tools to use for some quick assessments during term. Or maybe just some learning methods, ways of getting students to use peer learning, and things like that. So you find under discussion, blogs, and journals under tools here. Now, you can also find them, of course, under your course tools here. So we've got blogs will be here, blogs, then discussions, there we go. And then journals. So you'll also find them here. And of course, you can also link them to your tool link by creating a tool link. So I'm going to go to, what have I got there? I've got discussions already. So I'm going to put in journals. So I'm going to do journals from the tool link, and I'm going to do blogs from within the content so you see the difference. Okay. Now let's start off with discussions. Now, I've got a couple of forums here. Let's just delete them, get them out of the way. Whenever you see this, remember that there is a column associated with it. And if you have any marks in it, it's going to go away. Please, I always start crying when people phone me and say that they've deleted a column because we can't get it back, and it's awful. All right, I'm going to create a new forum. Now, remember, in discussion boards, you have a forum, and I always like to think of it as an umbrella, the overarching theme, so maybe chapter 1. And then you have threads within the forums, and those will be topics of conversation. So chapter 1 is about environmental, or something. and then, you know, the threads can be ecology, sustainability, or something like that. Because I'm going to call this one chapter 1 forum. That means that students know that all of the threads under this one will be from chapter 1 or module 1 or learning unit 1 or whatever the case may be, term 1, semester 1. Depends on what you do. Okay, so I'm going to put in chapter 1 description. I always like to tell them actually what threads they'll find here. So I'll say you'll find 3 threads named basics, intermediate, whatever the case may be. Now we're going to leave it as available, but again, you can date restrict it. So you can say that this forum will only be visible to students during first term or whatever dates you input here. Then we have some settings. Now you can have students create their own thread, or you can have them not be able to create threads, and that means that they will have to reply to the threads you create. So it's completely dependent on what you might want them to create their own thread and put in their discussion, and then other students come in and discuss it, or you want to prompt them with a question and they reply to that, and that is the discussion. So it completely depends on what it is you're doing. But remember, if you want students to be able to create their own threads, you need to, you need to, just want to find where it is. There, allow members to create new threads is always marked by default. So if you do not want them to be able to create their own threads, only have them reply to your threads, then remember to uncheck that one. We always forget that one. It's kind of hidden in all the chaos. All right. You can say that students must create a thread in order to view other threads. We've just disallowed that, so we don't want that. But it is, if you have them able to create new threads, you can say that a student can't reply to another person's thread unless you have unless they have themselves created a thread. Okay, no marking in forum. We are going to change it to mark, because we're going to use the discussion as a kind of assessment. Now you can either mark the entire forum or mark a single thread. I'm going to do forum today. I'm going to say it's going to be worth 10 points. And now you can decide when they are shown in the needs marking status. You can uncheck this if you don't actually going to go and mark them. You just want them to kind of feel incentivized. Otherwise, leave that checked. And we can say, when are students going to be eligible for marking, in other words. So if we say, for instance, after every 2 posts, because I instructed them to first put their own opinion down and then comment on one other person's opinion. So then I would want 2 posts. If I said they had to put down their own opinion and then reply to 2 other people's, then I would put 3 posts, but I'm just going to put 2 for this one. And then you can put in a due date. So by when do they have to complete this assignment or this discussion? When do they have to finish this? Again, you can add a rubric. I have some very nice rubrics for discussions that look at ethics and etiquette and things like that as well. So you can make very nice rubrics for discussions where you look more at the students' participation than the actual content that they are contributing. All right, subscriptions, you can allow a student to subscribe. I like leaving that unchecked because I like the fact that students can subscribe. That means they subscribe to a thread or a forum and they immediately get notified when new things happen in that forum or thread, which is very nice, especially if they use the app, because the app, is on their phone, so they get immediate notifications if they are. So you can either have them subscribe to the threads or to the entire forum. So that depends on how you set them up, which one you would choose. Include body of post in the email. So the notifications they also receive via email. And you can say yes, so it should include the whole body of the post, or just say there is a new post. So you can choose which one of those you want. Okay, you cannot allow anonymous posts when there's needs marking, obviously, because the students need to have a name assigned to the post so that you can mark it. But if you did not have it, you can allow anonymous posts for students who are afraid. But I do feel that they get a little bit off topic when you allow this because there's no repercussions. They don't feel the, the fear. All right, you can allow the author to delete their own posts. I don't really see why you would not do that. Sometimes I sometimes read back on some of the things and I think, wow, there are so many typos in there. I really want to be able to delete or edit that. So I always check these, but it depends on you. We don't want them to create new threads in this case, but you might want to allow file attachments, allow users to reply with a quote. So quotes, in other words, is they use another person's text or body as a quote, saying that, you know, maybe they want to say, I agree with what this person said. Forced moderation means that before a post is printed or, you know, accepted, you first have to go and okay. Now, this is a lot of work. I normally don't do this because that means every post needs to go through me before it's allowed onto the script. Okay, allow post tagging. That's just so that you can tag different posts or allow members to rate posts. And this is fun. It means they can give the other posts, you know, stars, or they can tag each other into the post and things. And it's fun. It's kind of like makes it feel a bit more social media than, you know, a university feel. All right, so that is our forum. And there is our new forum now. We can see how many replies we have, unread posts, etc., etc. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into the forum and I'm going to create the thread. So I'm going to create threads. This is my first topic. And here you put in the prompt. Discuss your views on and here's where you also say comment on at least one of your peers or classmates, or you can use more informal language, I see. Okay, and you can add images, videos, text, anything. You can add, you know, links to websites. So maybe the article about the merger of that company, you can link here. So let's say it's this one. Copy the URL, paste it, and it will give me a link to the merger. Why isn't it making my link? There we go. No, just slow. You know, so you can add anything you want into your prompt here, attach files, so on, and then submit. And there is your topic. Now your students can come in, and so I'm just quickly going to go in as student. Okay, so students going to go to discussions, chapter 1, the thread, and then they will reply to this. They will read the article. And then they will reply. And then they will do that thing that I absolutely hate. They will say, yes, I agree completely, but they don't put in any extra information that drives the conversation forward. Submit. There is your first reply. And then people can reply to this, like we allowed them to quote. We allowed the user to edit and delete. Those won't be there if you didn't check them. We can allow them to rate. Obviously, I can't rate my own, but I can rate the original prompt and so on. So now this is where the fun starts. Now they will start going into it. Now I'm just going to quickly show you. I hope we said 1. No, we said 2. So the student has to reply twice before they will go to needs marking. So I'm just going to reply to myself. Okay, so the student has 2 posts now. So it will show up in our needs marking. So if I go back to the student view, the lecture view, and I go to needs marking, there is that student 1, chapter 1 discussion. And when I click on it, I can see their contributions, first topic, and you can see here what the student added and that they can't spell or type. If they had, if they had ratings, etc., and so on. Okay, and then you can put in a score. So I'm going to say this student deserves an 8 out of 10 because it's me and I like me. And that's how you mark a discussion. All right, so let's quickly, I'm going to run out of time today. Let's quickly have a look at journals. I'm going to show you journals. Blogs work exactly the same way. The only difference between journals and blogs, journals are private between student and instructor. Blogs have the ability to have comments from other students. So blogs are kind of like public. Journals are private. So think of a journal as something you can use with a student to work through their progress journal, but a blog you might use for students to reflect, and you want other students to also see reflections. Okay. But setting up, they work exactly the same way. I'm going to click on journals. And for some reason, I did not actually link journals, but I linked achievements. Let me try again. Journals. So sometimes when I click too quickly, and I do that. There we go. For some reason, my computer's just slowed down a lot. Let's hope it doesn't do anything. All right, so now journals, again, you have, you might already have some journals, especially if you are inheritor of subjects, but we're going to create a new one. You can go and delete some of these old ones to get them out of the way. I'm going to do that. It's very frustrating. What is happening here? Sorry, let me just check if I need to contact my service provider. Yep, that's not very good. All right, I'm going to WhatsApp them here on the side. Hopefully they'll fix it while we go. You know, and the prices we pay for internet, and then it's constantly not working. But I think it's load shedding. I don't think it's their fault, actually. Okay, let's create a journal. So again, we're going to give a journal name. Let's call this one Reflection. And we instruct students to reflect on their experience, your experience while researching the case study. Okay, I don't know what happened there. I'm just going to leave it. Journal availability, yay or nay. We're going to make it straight available for this example. Again, we can limit the availability. Now the entries, how many entries are we going to have? Or are they going to journal weekly? Or are they going to journal monthly? So it depends on what it is that they're doing. If it's a project, for instance, for Will, we often choose weekly because we want the students to check in weekly. So the lecturer kind of can have a pulse, you know, on where the students are at, even if it's just for, if they're doing okay, so on. If it's a larger project, or if it's just the year in general, you can maybe leave it on monthly, and the students will be prompted monthly to check in their journal. We can allow them to edit and delete entries. I have no problem ever with that, but that depends on what you have, or delete your comments if you want. Permit course users to view journal. So you can have that, that's fine. And then here we want to mark it again. And we are going to say again, let's say 10, show in needs marking after how many entries. So maybe you only wanted to show in after a month of weeklies. Then you're going to look at all 4 of them, or you are going to have a look at one every week. So you want it to appear in your needs marking entry every time they posted something. Again, you can have a due date and a rubric, just like you had with all the others. Now, there are videos on our YouTube channel that show students how to journal, and there's a video for you that show you how to set up a journal. But I'm just quickly going to show you what it looks like to mark a journal. So wait, I have to refresh here on my very slow connection. Okay, so I know that I have to go and reflect. My lecturer told me, so I go into my reflection. Okay, I'm going to create my first entry. I'm going to title it week 1. Maybe I'm out on a will assignment. I feel good. Post entry. And then here on the right is where you will have the index of all the entries. Okay, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like quickly so that we can mark it. And then here I will go to my needs marking, because remember we set it up that they only have need one post before they come into needs marking. And there it is, journal reflection. And then you just open it up. Put in the score, put in your feedback, anything that you want, and then submit. Now, just a quick note, I don't think I mentioned it. All of these, every time you mark something like a journal, a discussion, a blog, it automatically creates a column in your grade center. So here are my two that we just created. That chapter 1 is the discussion, and the reflection is the journal that we created. And here are already the marks that I've allocated to that student that uploaded. Right, so anytime you assign a mark to any tool like a discussion or blog, it automatically creates that column in your grade center. So it's not something that you have to go and do manually, it's already there. And when you mark them, they also reflect the marks as you mark them. Okay, all right, so that was journals and discussions. Like I said, blogs work exactly the same way. I'm sorry, I'm skipping over these two now, but I think they are a bit more, you know them better. I just quickly want to go to self and peer because I'm finding a lot of people asking me about that recently. So I thought maybe it's a good thing to cover, and it's just going to take a bit longer and it's already 10 past, but you're welcome to contact me anytime and ask more about discussions, blogs and journals. And we can also do this later again, you know, another training on these as well, or a new one. All right, so let's do peer assessment. Now, how peer assessment works is the students are prompted to go on to twice, or actually 3 times if you include when they go and look at their results. First, they have to go and submit. So this can be an essay, a case study, or just the input of a rubric for a project they did as a group or anything like that. Then they have to go back on another set of dates to evaluate their peers according to the criteria that you set up. Now, as you can see, I've created one earlier here today to show you what it looks like. We're going to create a new one just now, but I just want to show you that you can see that there's 2 dates. Submission, in other words, student A goes and uploads their work that is going to be assessed, be it a case study, an essay, whatever the case may be. Then we have the second time frame, which is when student A goes and evaluates student B, C, D, or whatever the case may be, submissions. Okay. And I'm going to show you how to create that. So it can get a little bit complex, but I have to tell you, when you get the hang of it and you start using it often, especially for your peer assessments or for your graduate attributes or anything like that, it works really well. And it takes a lot of strain off of you because you're basically using students to evaluate each other, you know, so you don't have to do that. Okay, so I'm going to create a new one from scratch. We're going to work on this one later because I've gone and filled in some of these. So I'm going to go to assessment. And there we have it, self and peer assessment. It's going to open up a dialog box. And the first thing you can choose is to import one from another subject. And this works exactly the same way. If you're familiar with importing and exporting tests, works exactly the same way. You can go and export any of your self-assessments from this subject. It downloads to your computer as a zip file. Then you can go to your other subject and import and just upload that file. So if you have the same kind of self and peer assessments and use them for all your subjects, then this is a great way of just, you know, having to create it once and then using it again and again. But today we're going to create a new one. I'm going to call this peer chapter 1. You can call it whatever. And here you put in the instructions. Now, we can do training for students. I think it might be a good idea if I do a video as well on the student side on how to create, how they should do this, because it can get a little bit confusing to them. But I find that if you put your instructions very thoroughly, then it doesn't confuse them at all and they get what they do. So I always do it like this. I say, step 1. Between these dates, upload your case study 1.2. Step 2, between these dates, evaluate 2 peers. And you choose how many peers they evaluate. And then you put in there. Step 3, between dates, check results. Okay, so obviously you won't put it in the short, you will put it in more colloquially, but you know, get the gist. So if you explain to them exactly what they have to do, because sometimes they get confused about the fact that they have to come back to it at a different date, excuse me. So I always find that the step system works nicely. They know, okay, I have to come back, in a week and do the evaluation, etc. Now we have to choose when these are. So submission dates, I'm going to make the submission date today now because I want to submit. That's fine. And then by default, it always gives a week, but you can go and choose your own submission dates. So I'm going to say they have to finish this by tomorrow. Then when is the evaluation date? So in other words, this is when student A goes and submits. This is when student A goes and reviews or evaluates student B and C, their submissions they put in there in the first date. I'm confusing myself, but yeah, you get it. Now, it's very important that this date has to be after this date. So it has to follow. So we have to put in, if I try and put it in, it'll bring up a little pop box. So I'm going to say 2/11, that's fine. And it can stay open for that whole week. That's fine. So that's how long they have for this. Now, allow anonymous evaluation. This is dependent. Do you want the students to be anonymous? So in other words, I can't see who my evaluators were. Sometimes this makes students more honest. Sometimes it makes them mean. It's completely dependent on your group, on what you are achieving with this. So you have to decide. I'm going to say no, because there is some kind of responsibility attached to having your name to something. But it also makes students too nice sometimes, that they want to be friends instead of, being honest. So it depends. Self-evaluation, so that will be defaulted. That means that not only am I going to evaluate student B and C, but I'm also going to evaluate student A, who is me, myself. So that's a nice one to have, but we can check no if you don't want to, if they only want them to check those. Show the evaluations results, so they can come back for that third step and see their results. Or if it's an exam and you don't want to see that yet, then you can just leave it on no. How many students are they going to evaluate? So I'm going to leave it at 2. Now, remember, this is excluding themselves if you checked self-evaluation. This means that in this instance, there will be 3 evaluations done by each student, themselves and 2 others. Okay, now we just have our options, make it available, yes, track number of views, and we can restrict the dates as we can always do. Remember that if you do restrict the dates, that they have to coincide with what you chose here. So it has to open here and close here at least. Otherwise, that's not going to make any sense. All right, so now we've put up our options, now our canvas. So we're going to put in the prompts or questions for the evaluation. So I'm going to just do a very basic one. You can go and figure out some more complex ones. Let me know if you do. I always love seeing them. This first one, I'm going to say upload your review of the group project. Okay, and you can obviously put in a lot more info here. You can even have a model response. Student won't see the model response when they upload the thing, but they will see it when they evaluate each other. They will see the model response if you want one. And we're going to leave this as available and submit. And you can have as many questions as you want. So I'm going to put in the next question. Reflect on your experience during the group project. Again, model answer, etc. So I'm going to stick to 2 today, just to keep it short. Now we have to go and decide on the criteria. So we want to help our students, basically by giving them a kind of rubric to tell them how they should evaluate each other. We can leave it at this, but I always feel like it's good to add the criteria and edit it. So I'm going to go to the drop-down menu, the chevron, and go to criteria. If you wanted to edit it, you can do it from here as well if you want to change anything, but now we're just going to go to criteria, and then we can create our different criteria. One of the ones that you can create is word count. I never used, but if there's something, if you want to restrict a submission by word count, you can do that by just clicking here and saying how many words they are allowed. But I normally just go to create manual criteria. And think of this as a kind of like a rubric. Now you have the option to assign points. So let's put in 10 here, all or nothing or partial credit. So I'm going to show you both so you can see kind of what that looks like. So I'm going to put this one in as partial credit. And this is the criteria for the introduction, for instance. I'm going to say introduction, bad. I sound like a troll. 0 to 3. Introduction, good. 4 to 7. Now you don't have to do it this way. This is just the way I always used to do it. I kind of used the criteria as a weird rubric, but I mean, you can put in more in-depth descriptions of what the student should look for, what gets good marks, what gets bad marks, etc. So you can be very in-depth here, or you can just do it something like this. Now the student knows what they are looking for. Oh, this one should be excellent. Sorry. There we go. I'm going to do that for all of them. Okay. Submit. Now I'm going to put in another criteria. This time it's going to be let's skip body and references and all that. Let's just put in conclusion now, just so we can move on. You get the gist. So it's the same kind of idea, but this time students are going to look at conclusion. And again, all or nothing or partial, we can again select partial. We can again say 10 and submit. So those are going to be the two criteria the student has for question 1. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to stop there, but you can have as many as you want. Now let's go and do the criteria for question 2, the reflection. And this time I'm going to create one with all or nothing. I'm going to put in 10 again. And I'm going to put in here, does the student, let's say student, does the student reflect on their entire week with full descriptions? And then the student knows, yes, they get all, so they get the full 10. No, they do not, they get nothing. And then we can always allow feedback as well. And it's quite good I like having feedback and peer reflections, because by evaluating your friend and saying why you chose to evaluate them this way, the student also learns from the experience. So I always like to have peer reviews with feedback. Okay, so in this case, we're only going to have this one criteria. Okay, we're not going to have any more. Okay, so we have our 2 questions. We're all done. It's going to take us back to here. So either I can now go back to the canvas. That's where we have the questions and the criteria. I can go back to the properties. So that's where we have our options, when the available dates, etc., etc. Or we can export this one because we want to import it to another one. But we don't want to do any of that. We want to go back. And here is my chapter. So I'm quickly going to go as a student now and show you what that looks like on their end. Oh, I think my internet has fixed itself, or because nobody replied to my message. That's good. Okay, so the student is going to come to the the content area where you allocated it, and they're going to click on the that they have to do, the assessment that they have to do. They see their instructions, the evaluation and submission dates, and etc. We are now going to submit. So we are in step 1. So a student is going to come into question 1. They have to go and upload your review of the group project. Hopefully this is something they've prepped before they started. Where did I put that random doc? Yeah, there we go. Okay, or they can type. I'm going to type in the reflection, the next question. So I'm just going to attach something. Again, they can attach as many files as they need to. I'm just going to attach one for now. The student is going to go to next. This is question 2, that response. This time we're going to type in. Hopefully they will have something more than this for you. And they're going to submit, and they'll go back to. Now, while the submission window is open, students can come back and edit. Okay, so remember that when you select your submission dates, they can come back and edit this anytime in that bracket of time. Okay, and then we say, okay. Now the student has to wait for the next dates. So in this case, they will have to wait till May 14th to start with the evaluations. Now I did one earlier today that I set up to open at 11:30, just so we can move on. So say, for instance, this is now the next time. The student will come back to the peer assignment. They will come to the assessment. And this time they will see the students that they need to evaluate. Now, this one I chose that the student is also self-evaluation. That's why there's 2 peers and yourself. Okay, that's why they have 3. And they can see here the status and the points allocated. And this is how the student goes about it. Click on it. I can see my 2 questions here at the top. So I'm on question 1 now, and it's asking me upload your case study. And there I can see the file. So the student can download the file. Oh, I'm I keep forgetting when I'm in a different browser that it works differently. And there they can see the file that the student has uploaded. Now I've just put in some random text here, so it's not even something that makes sense, I think. And then they can put in the score. So I'm going to have a look at the introduction now. I open my Word document. The introduction to me, I thought was a 5. Okay. Save and next criteria. The body was very good, so I'm going to put in an 8. And this time I'm going to put in some feedback to my peer and say, well done. So I was really impressed with that. Save and next criteria. So this is the third and last criteria. Conclusion. This time I'm going to say conclusion was a 6. Save and next question. So now we're done with question 1. It's going to take us to next question, which is the reflection. This time the student reflected, and you can see here they wrote something. And remember, this time we said all or nothing. So they can't put in 1 to 10. They have to say either yay or nay. The student made the reflection or they did not make the reflection, put in their feedback if they want to or not, and then save and submit. It'll take me back to my other students, and now I can see that this one is completed and this one, these two still need to have looked. So we can go, I don't think there's really any need for me to go through them all, but let's quickly do it. So let's just put in, I think we can do it. Yes, we can. We can quickly skip and just do 1 criteria every time. All right, so I'm just going to put in 10 and then submit. Okay, and now all of mine are done. It's okay. And now I come back when this date has ended, and then I can review the evaluations of myself. Then I will be able to see what other students have said. Let's see if I can see it now. I think you'll be able to see your own for now, but until that date is finished, you won't be able to see the other students' evaluations of yourself. All right, so in the instructor view, this will show up in your grade center as any other assessment. Here is chapter 1. I just want to remember what I called that other one. Evaluate example. There we go. And we will have something here to mark at the end of that date. I should have put that date as end before now. Let's put it in 12/20. So I'm going to put that in as today at 12/20. I hope they will allow us to do this after the fact. Let's see. I don't think so. No, sorry. So I should have had something here to see from the student's point of view, the evaluations and things like that, and also the final score would have come up. Yeah, sorry, I should have set it from the beginning. I didn't think there. But you will just see a normal assignment where you can go and have a look at the attempts. In this case, you will just see it as, the student's feedback, the points that they gave, etc., etc. Okay, 4 minutes to go for questions, but I mean, I'm happy to stay longer. I just didn't want to keep you longer, but I think we got through it all in the end. Let me see what we have here in the chat box. All right, lots of stuff going on. Is it possible for Safer Side to detect plagiarism among students, i.e. submitting students similar documents, students copying from each other? Or Anile answered there. Okay, so Tato, let me know if you want to have more questions regarding that. But how it works is the program can compare to the first person, but they cannot compare to a future event, if that makes sense. So if student A plagiarizes from student B, but student A uploads before student B, it will look to you like it's the other way around, because whoever is first is the original document. And because it's comparing to existing documents, it won't compare to the future student. I don't know if that makes sense, but it can only compare to whatever is available. So if the student who is plagiarized from was slow in uploading, the first student may look like the original author. That's why I say plagiarism is very technical. You need to, be involved in that. Don't just allow the software to make decisions. Is there an option to make each student document unique assignment from each other? For instance, having a unique ID when the assignment is downloaded, when the student submits it, then checks if the document is student allowed. Okay, so in your grade center, you have submission receipts. and they give unique numbers. So if I go and look for that student that we just used, everything that student has uploaded gets a unique number. It also gives you the dates, etc., etc. So I don't know if that is what you mean, but you can let me know. But yeah, there is these unique numbers, and this number is completely unique. If I send this to Blackboard, it will correspond to that student and that student only. How can I get attendance after the session has been recorded on Collaborate? Okay, I'm going to quickly show you that. So you go into your Collaborate. Attendance. All right, so previous sessions, go to that little 3 dots there, view reports. Now, I don't have any sessions here with actual reports, but let's see. There you can see the number of attendees, view the report. You can download it as CSV. Okay, so that's how you check that. Sorry, I'm going so quick, but we're not actually doing Collaborate right now. Dr. Rich saying load shedding. Yep, I get you. Load shedding has been really horrible to me. And that's all the chat questions. So over to you guys. You can unmute yourself and ask me any questions. There we go. If 6 students submit the similar document. Yeah. So Tato is asking again, if 6 students submit the same document. So what will happen, Tato, if you do not exclude the submissions, the first student will show the correct, or will show a percentage, say for instance, 13%. Any student after it, so number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 after that will show 100%. So it's all dependent on who is first to upload. So it's very difficult to find student cheating in the same classroom. It's easier to do from a previous year group. So that's unfortunately one of those things that we can't help. It's you know, unless we live in a world that doesn't have linear time. So if student 4 was the original creator and student 1, 2, and 3 just posted before them, it's difficult. That's why we check the report to see, you know, where the student, and we try and find intent, and we try and, you know, dig into the report to see who happened. But yeah, so if 6 students submit the same document, only number 1 will look like they've been honest. Number 2 through 5, 6 will show the plagiarism or the originality. But you will see that student 1 is also involved. You will see that they are the original document, but then you will have to go in and untangle that mess. And I will feel very sorry for you if that happens. But yeah, that's the only way. All right, I've got 2 hands raised. Let me just see them. With participants. All right, Ellen, hands up. Let's go. What can I help you with?
Yes, hello, Leanric. I just wanted to ask you on the PA assignment. Knowing the way I normally do the PA reviews for groups, do you think this one can work? Perhaps if I stop using the Question Pro and then set up the PA assignment this side.
It could work. Yeah, definitely it could work. It will take a little bit of figuring some things out because your reviews are quite complex. But I have your reviews somewhere. So let me go and have a look if I can figure it out and build you a basic. But yeah, it could always work. We'll just have to figure out some of the more intricate bits. But I don't think it's impossible.
The tricky being the only
we'll have a lot of criteria and a lot of questions for each review. That's what I mean with it's complex. It's not really complex. It is just going to take some time to fill it out in a way that makes sense for the student, because we always want to do it in a way that the student works through it easily and don't get frustrated. But I think we can. Yeah, let's have a look and see if we can do it.
Do you think we can do it now, or we can have to?
Let's make an appointment because I have other things now, but yeah, we can do it. But I'll go and have a look at your assessments and then just see if I can build a basic layout.
Okay, and the other thing is bearing in mind that they review as per group. It's not the whole students.
Oh yeah, we'll have to go. I don't think you can do it by group, but I'll go and have a look. But we can do where we limit the content area per group and then do it that way. So there is a way of getting around that. Yeah, we can definitely do it. Okay. Any other questions? Let's see what's happening on the chats. Nothing new on the chats. Please go ahead and unmute yourself. Ask any questions. Remember that the recording will be available on YouTube later if there's anything you want to double check. And of course, you can just contact me should there be anything that you want to ask about that's maybe not come up here. I'm going to put the attendance in the chat again. Please, if you haven't had time to fill that out, please make sure that you do. I have to report back to your teaching and learning acting deans. So it's important that your name is on the list if you were here. Otherwise, it's going to look like you weren't in the room, and that's bad for me and for you. Okay. All right, let's stop the recording there, make it short. I'm going to stick around for a couple of minutes, but if you are happy with the day, you're welcome to go and have a great weekend. Otherwise, you can keep asking me any questions.